Hi friends, hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Martina, and in today's video I would love to share with you guys a from start to finish, every step of the way tutorial for how to make a hardcover hand-painted junk journal just like this one. We are going to be making this one together. So this one is a Christmas journal, and I just wanted to say a few things before I show you guys the whole process. So first of all, we are going to be going through every step, like from cover construction. This cover is constructed from scratch, so this is not a book cover, but it's created from separate bookboard and cardboard pieces, through painting, decorating, through doing all of the inside papers, binding, decorating, everything. And I just wanted to say that if there is anything that I have not mentioned, or that you maybe did not like understand, or maybe I didn't show it correctly, please let me know in the comments, and I will be glad to answer any of your questions. The second thing is that I am going to be showing you guys the materials that I use, but especially with media such as paints, such as I don't know, such as the varnish that I use, stuff like that. I think that the type of the product is more important than the brand. So if you guys don't know, I'm in Poland, so I'm actually using a lot of Polish like paints, for instance. But what I think is more important than the brand of the paints that I'm using is the type of them, meaning that if I am using acrylic paints, I would not change them to any other type of paint like watercolor, gouache, or something like that. I would definitely stick with acrylics, but just use any brand that you have available for you. Another thing that I would like to mention is that this video that I'm going to share with you guys is edited, of course. This whole process took me almost 2 weeks. Granted, I was making 6 journals at the same time. I'm only showing you how to make this one, but if you guys have seen the flip through that was, I think, last week, I will link it below. I share with you guys 6 journals, and I was making all of them at the same time, so it took me a little bit longer. But I am saying this just because I know that sometimes, I know from my own experience, that sometimes when you watch a video, it may seem that the process, that someone else's process is just so much swifter and easier, and it just takes no time at all. And I just want to make sure that you guys know that this took me a long time, and just, you know, be patient, enjoy the process. Do not worry if it takes time, because especially with a hand-painted cover, things really need time to dry before you proceed with other steps. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And in any case, I hope you guys will enjoy it. I hope you will find it useful or inspiring. If you are a seasoned journal maker, maybe you will find some new techniques to try in your craft. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, and let me transfer you guys back to the beginning of this process and to the voiceover. Okay, so we are going to be starting with constructing the cover from scratch, and here are some materials. So I am going to be using a wet glue, a paint brush with some water, a regular cotton fabric, just white cotton fabric, and some bookboard. And here I am going to show you guys the measurements, but I will also include them in the description box. So as you can see, I have 3 pieces, 2 for the covers, 1 for the spine, and also a frame. Now the cover pieces are thicker, so they are 3mm bookboard. I get mine online in a craft store, while the spine and the frame 1 millimeter, so much thinner, because I am going to want to curve my spine a little bit, as you will see in a moment. And the glue that I am using is just a regular white glue. You can use PVA glue, you can use maybe fabric glue, or what's the bookbinding glue, anything that just will stick your bookboard to fabric. So this is a process of constructing the cover from scratch. As you can see, this is how I prefer to do it, because I can have the exact measurements that I want. I can very easily make my spine as large or as small as I want to. And so what I am going to be starting with is I am going to cover my 3 pieces. I'm going to leave off the frame for now, but I'm going to cover my 3 pieces with this white fabric. Now this, I am using white fabric mostly because I'm going to be painting over it anyway, so this is the easiest because I don't have to, you know, struggle with covering some kind of a vibrant color. However, if you would like to, I will link below some other tutorials that I have for some different cover types. But if you would like to use a decorative fabric and not paint your cover, then you can also do the same thing. Just use a nice pretty fabric, and that will be all that you do. But I am using my wet glue and my paintbrush to distribute glue evenly over my bookboard. And now you can see me, like, this fabric is not ironed, nothing like that. There is a lot of creases, but I found that if you just go like I am going around it with my fingers or with a bone folder or even with a ruler, you can straighten up all the creases, so you don't really have to worry about any of that. And I am also not worried about adding too much glue, because even if it seeps through, we are going to be covering this white fabric with a lot of layers of different media. Now this is a tricky part. You want your cover piece, so I am starting kind of with the left cover piece and then the spine, and you want your spine to be in line top and bottom with your cover, and also leave just a little bit, maybe like 1/4 of an inch, maybe like 5 millimeters or even less space between the cover and the spine. And you can see me now curving the spine, like I'm literally doing it like that with my fingers, because the piece of cardboard that I am using is wet from the glue. It will hold a little bit, so I am curving it quite a lot, but it will definitely straighten up much more. It will be just slightly curved, which is my preferred look, and so I do it on on this step, you know. I don't do anything special to curve my spines. This is just literally what I do. The third piece, which is the other cover piece, again I'm trying to, like, I am eyeballing it, but you could maybe use a ruler and as like your guide if you wanted to, but I am eyeballing it, trying to make them as even as possible. Now you remember that this is, like, at least what I am doing, I consider a junk journal, and so it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Now I'm cutting around my fabric because I don't need that much, and here I will show you guys. Oh yeah, this is how you want to cut fabric around your corners. So we need a little bit of fabric here to cover the corner when we then fold up this fabric, like I am showing you guys here. And so you want to avoid making a straight line, but like I'm making like a little triangle, or you can make it like a curved line. I think it's easier to show than to explain, at least for me in English. So this is basically what I do. As you can see, it's not just a straight line with my scissors. And so now I am going to be gluing the inside, those inside flaps of fabric. Now I am starting with the longer edges first, because I feel like they are a bit more difficult because you have more space to cover. Adding glue, I am also adding the glue to the crease, to the space between the spine and the cover, as you could see, and then using quite a lot of strength or force, I am folding my fabric and making sure that it's glued through. Now you will see I will just, oh yeah, here, you can also do it this way. Just make sure that it is nicely like stretched over the edge of your cover of your journal. You don't want any creases here, you don't want any like folded pieces of fabric. You want it to be nice and stretched and all of the edges covered. And I am also, like I did it on the other long edge as well, and I am using my bone folder, but you can also use just a ruler to make sure that my fabric is also glued kind of in the creases between the spine and the cover. And here you can see how I am tackling these shorter edges and how I am just trying to cover the corner of my book board with fabric. This is important. This looks messy, so this is definitely the most messy state of the cover. It doesn't look pretty, but it doesn't have to. You just want the corners to be covered with fabric, because we will then cover everything with paint and with everything else. So it doesn't have to look nice, yet it just has to be covered. And so I let it dry. Overnight would be preferable, I believe, but I let it dry for a few hours. You want the glue to be completely dry. And so now I am going to go to the next stage of prepping my cover before painting, and that is using acrylic gesso, white acrylic gesso, to cover the whole thing. Now gesso is, I'm using the one from Renaissance, which is a Polish brand, but use any acrylic gesso, white preferably, to cover the whole thing. And I am using a nice thick layer. As you can see, it already looks much more sort of even, right, the color. And I'm going to be covering the frame with two layers, because it was grey to begin with. And so gesso acts as a primer. It prepares the surface of your cover for anything that comes next, for any paints, any other media. It evens out the color, it evens out the surface of the cover. And so I like this, for me, is one of the most important steps. I never kind of miss it, you know. I always make sure that I cover the whole thing with gesso, both outside and inside the cover. Now again, like I mentioned in the intro, between those sections of the video, there really was a lot of drying time. I was making sure that everything was completely dry before I kind of went with the next step and with the next element. So here I am using just a thin cardstock to reinforce the spine area of my cover. So the place where the spine is like joins with the covers, and the measurements, I showed you guys the measurements, so you can of course pause the video, but what really matters here is that it's slightly shorter than your spine and also wider, so that it kind of overlaps the covers a little bit. And as you could see, I creased it a little bit by holding it in place and closing my covers delicately, because it just makes it easier to then position and to glue it down. And so I am making sure I put wet glue all over this piece, and then making sure that it is evenly stuck, and I am not going to close it until again it's completely dry. So yeah, I left it for like probably at least 15 minutes, you know, and then very delicately I'm going to close my covers. And you want it to be shorter than your spine, and just because, you know, you don't want it to peek through any sort of paper or fabric that you use for the spine area and the cover, the inside cover later. And now I'm just checking if it's all glued down nicely. This has to be one of my favorite parts of making the covers, that is painting, choosing the paper or the image that will go inside the frame, choosing paint colors and any other decoration. So I have a few options. I am showing you guys a few options of what could go inside the cover. Now I am using scrapbooking paper for this particular project, but for my like nature themed journals I am also like most commonly using book pages and pretty illustrations in vintage books. But yeah, if you guys saw the flip through of those completed Christmas journals, you will know that I use a lot of those options for my other journals. So I am just checking what sits nicely inside the cover. I don't want the images to be kind of cut awkwardly. And as you saw in the thumbnail, and also of course in the beginning of this video, this is the one that I decided to go through with this project. So I am just marking where to cut. I'm going to cut my image slightly smaller than my frame, and I mean like the whole frame, not just the inside, because I am then going to be gluing it to the frame, like to the back of the frame. This is the way I like to do it. And so for this project I decided to go with one of my favorite techniques, which is using a crackle medium. This is one component crackle medium, and the way it works is that you put a base color to your cover or to your, you know, surface. In my case I'm choosing gold. Then when the paint is dry, you then go and put the crackle medium, and then when it is dry-ish, you go with a kind of like your main color, and when the main color, the top color, dries, it creates those really pretty, really amazing cracks and this very distressed effect. So I am covering my cover but also my frame, as you will see in a moment, with gold paint. And I don't think I've shown this, but both for the cover and for the frame I used 2 layers of this gold paint. This gold paint, I think again it's from Renaissance. It's not very, as you can see, especially on this frame, it's not very opaque. So this is the look of 2 layers. And now for the crackle medium. So this is how I use this crackle medium, and I will explain why I do it this way. So first of all, I use quite a lot of it, and I don't use it over my like whole cover. I use a lot of it because later I am going to use the fact that it's not completely dry to do some more distressing, as you guys will see, and also I am not covering the whole cover, the whole frame, just because I like the like I like some spaces of the cover to be completely covered with paint and some crackled. Now what I am doing right now is I am mixing myself a perfect paint color. I love the fact that even if you don't have the color, the acrylic paint color that you like, you can very easily blend a few colors, mix them up, and create a color that you like. And I am mixing burnt sienna, which is this nice brick brown color, with a little bit of red, because I wanted it to be this very warm brownish reddish color, and so yeah, mixed those two up, and now you guys can see me. This is very very speedily, you can see me adding the paint, and even as I just put it on the cover, you can already start seeing the cracks, and as the whole thing dries, you will see more and more of these. So I let my crackle medium dry for maybe like an hour. It was still sticky, and still a little bit wet in those places where I put a thicker layer of it, because right now I am using just some brush, or you can use a sponge, or like here I am using just a scrunched up piece of paper towel to kind of pick off or pick up some of this paint where my crackle medium was still wet. And yeah, I just love it. It creates a beautiful texture, both, you know, visually, but also kind of a nice tactile texture. So I always like to do it. That's why I pretty much use a lot of this crackle medium. You probably don't need that much if you just want to you know, go over with paint and be done with that. But I love to just distresses it a little bit more, and the paint just picks up so nicely in those spaces where, as you can see here, where the crackle medium is laid thick. I'm making sure the edges are also covered, and I will just say that this part, the drying took 2 days. So I filmed this part, I left it overnight, and the next day it was still like, I still was not satisfied with how dry it all was, so I left it for another night. So yeah, definitely takes time. Now is the time to paint the inside cover, and or the edges, just the edges of the inside cover, and I always just used a single color, no like crackle medium, nothing like that. Now we get to a fun part, to doing some more decorating, and so I am starting with gold foil, with those gold foil flakes, I believe. And so there is a special type of glue for this metal leaf thingy that I am using, and basically the way it works, when you put it on your page or on your cover, it is white, and you wait till it's transparent. It gets really sticky, and then you can add your gold flakes. I get my online or in craft stores. And what I'm doing, I'm putting some of the flakes. Now you can do it with the brush. I'm doing it by hand because like for some reason these were like laid really thick, and so I really wanted just to separate them better with my fingers, those little flakes. But what I'm doing, I am laying them where my sticky part is from the glue, and then I am going over with a brush, and I am like really I am brushing it with a lot of force, because I want to remove any part that is not glued properly. So I am just going over and over and over those gold elements, as you guys could see, and yeah, I'm just not shy about it. Now I am using gilding wax. This one is again a Polish brand, but any gilding wax, gilding paste, or even like a gold texture paste will do, and just with my fingers I am smudging it all over my cover, distressing it a little bit on the where the corners are, and I'm doing the same with the frame, making sure that I kind of cover both the outside and the inside covers. Now is the time to glue my picture to the frame. And the thing with the gold flakes is that you always have to varnish it before the project is completed. So this glue will stay sticky, and in order to protect this gold leaf, you have to varnish it. So what I'm going to be doing right now is I am gluing my image with my frame to the cover, and then I am going to be going over with a varnish of, you can go with a varnish of your choice. I am actually using Mod Podge. I really like using Mod Podge for that, and you can use a glossy varnish, you can use a matte varnish, whatever finish, or a satin one, whatever finish you like. And now I know that what I'm doing right now, it looks scary, and trust me you guys, when I first was painting my covers and I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, now all is destroyed. But trust me, it's not destroyed. This dries completely clear, and it also, even though this is a matte Mod Podge that I am using, it still stays shiny. So all the gold elements are still going to be shiny. And so for this journal collection and this particular journal, I decided to add some 3D elements, just collaged on the front here. And so I got, again, online in some of my local Polish craft stores, I got some fabric flowers, and I have those poinsettia flowers and those tiny little ones, and also a few that I'm going to like layer a couple of colors together to create a nice depth. I'm also going to be adding some buttons, and also this piece that I am gluing right now. And to glue everything down, I'm going to use heat glue and a heat glue gun. This is just a part of a vintage sari fabric with a beautiful applique. So yeah, I'm just gluing everything down. These flowers I am layering, and I'm also using a flat back crystal sticker type of thing for the center, and I really like how it turned out. Yeah, and for the buttons, oh yeah, here I decided to just add a little bit of this gold gilding wax to the flowers, and I actually really love how it looks. It did add like a little bit of distressed look to them, which I believe matches the cover really well. And for the buttons, I am actually going to be adding some twine to them, as you can see, but I am going to kind of knot it on the top of the buttons. So again, it's probably easier to see on the screen. I love doing it. It adds a really nice texture. Again, I am all about texture, but if you don't like this look or you don't want to do it, you can just glue the buttons by themselves and they will look just fine. And the twine that I'm using here is just a linen twine. It's actually the exact same twine that I'm going to be using later for the binding. And here is the complete cover. I really love how it turned out. I love all of those different textures that the flowers give and the buttons. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. And I kind of, as you could see, I kind of stuck with just two corners on a like diagonal line, just because I think it looks nice. So here you can see me looking for a paper for the inside cover, and I'm checking these are actually double-sided. which is nice because I feel like both sides just work together really well. So I am going to use this green one, and the green will go for like on the covers, and then the back side, which is this really nice checkered kind of a piece, will go for the spine area, and I really love how it works. So with this piece, I am doing the exact same thing as we did with the piece of cardboard that I used to reinforce the spine, and that's I'm using wet glue. I am making those creases by closing my covers before I glue anything, making sure that it is glued all the way, very, very carefully, especially where the creases are on the top and the bottom. Like, you just want to cover it all with glue, and I am not like touching it until I know that it's dry. So I'm not closing my cover yet. I am just gluing down the front and the bottom, the front and the bottom, the front and the back inside covers first, making sure with my bone folder that the glue again is distributed well. And only then, when I know that it is dry completely, I go and very delicately just fold those edges. And you want to do it this way because if it's wet, if the glue is still wet, it will move, it will crease, and yeah, it just won't be nice. Making sure it's nice and glued down all the way through. If it's not, if you can see anything just kind of coming off, you can go back and add some more glue at this point. It's okay. Now, to decorate the inside cover a little bit more, I decided to add some fabric or some lace to the place where the cover piece meets the spine piece, and that also gives a little bit more reinforcement for where the paper creases, because it's just paper and fabric is so much more durable. So I use wet glue, but I then smoosh it with my finger so it just does not seep through right through this nice lace piece that I have here, and doing it on both sides. I really like the look of it, and like I said, I am always looking for ways to add a little bit more reinforcement. Now let's chat about the papers. So here are the papers that I've chosen, and I am now going to be folding them in half. And I love to have in my journals a mixture of many different types of papers and textures and weights and everything. So here you can see me using some digital papers from my Botanical Christmas digital kit in my Etsy shop. I have some vintage and some antique book pages. Some of them I reinforced with washi tape. These are really pretty handmade papers. The texture is just amazing. Here is some straw paper, Italian straw paper, again another different texture. Here are some coffee stained papers, and yeah, I like to have a nice mixture of plain papers, perfect for journaling or for decorating, some ledgers as you can see, and also some pages that add interest, like you will see in a moment. So here is another vintage ledger, but this one has some writing, so it adds really pretty interest to the pages. I'm also going to be using some book pages, and I chose like a botanical books with like a winter theme, I would say. So yeah, some book pages, and also some scrapbooking cardstock. I like to add a scrapbooking cardstock if I have a chance, if I have like the perfect patterns, because it adds a little bit of heft to your signatures, which are the booklets that we are going to be combining together from these papers in just a moment. It's nice and it's thick. Yeah, it just adds a little bit more durability, especially if you also are using some papers like the like the antique book pages that I have here. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to look for a page that I would love to be my first page of the first signature. And I love, like, this is my favorite part when I watch people's flip throughs, watching them open the journal and to see the very first page is like my favorite part. So I always try to have like a special page for my first page, and then I am doing just a mixture of all the different types of papers. You can see kind of on the edges of the screen that I combined those papers into groups. I have my book pages in one group, I have my plain papers in the other, and this makes it easier to kind of distribute them evenly. I want a nice mixture of plain papers, of decorative papers, and also what is really, really important for me personally is I love to combine different sizes, different textures next to each other. So it's just interesting to flip through the journal, even if it's blank, even if it's not filled yet. So I am like mixing scrapbooking papers with vintage book pages, and then I will maybe add some coffee paper, some maybe vintage ledger. So yeah, you can see on those little flip throughs here that I really try to I rarely make my signatures in a way that I have, for instance, 2 scrapbooking papers next to each other, or 2 book pages, or 2 coffee stained papers. I just like to keep it interesting. And also when I am journaling myself, and when I am using my own journals, I like this mixture and the interest that it gives me when I'm journaling. So here's the third signature. I decided to go with 3 signatures for this particular journal, and yeah, I really like how these signatures turned out. Now, before I bind them, I also want to decorate the edges of the papers a little bit. So here I'm just checking if it sits nicely within my cover, if I don't need to maybe cut or trim some of the papers slightly more. But what I decided to do for the edges of this particular journal is, for the first page of each of the signatures, I'm going to use the same kind of like a layered flower as I had on the cover. So just 2 of those 4 petals mulberry paper flowers that I got online with a little flat back pearl type of thing for the center, and I am also going to do off camera, I'm going to stitch with machine stitching some fabric and some lace to the edges of my papers. So I didn't show it on camera just because I have no way in my room, in my current setup, to kind of show you guys my sewing machine. It would just obscure the whole view, but I just took a few like strips of paper of different fabrics, some sari fabrics, some lace, and I just stitched them to the edges of some of my pages, as you guys will see in just a moment when I show it to you. So sorry I don't have I don't have this part on camera, but there's really no way for me to add this, but what I love about it is how messy it is how textured it looks, and it's also just a beautiful decoration. So I have the same exact pieces of fabric in all of the 3 signatures. And now for the binding. So what I love to do to have my signatures straight, which is important for me, especially when I make journals for sale, is I use graph paper as a template for my spine. So I cut it to the exact size of my spine, slightly shorter in my case, but pretty much the spine. And what graph paper does, it provides you with a guidance because you have all of those lines. So you can see me fold it in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half along the longer edge. So I already am adding some lines to this template, and then I am going to fold it in half again because I am going to be using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So you want 3 holes along the side, along the spine. Now I'm going to use a pencil to mark, and I just folded it, so you have the graph and you have your folded lines to kind of guide you, and so you can add those dots and those marks perfectly. And this is where I'm going to be adding my signatures, and as you can see, they are displayed quite widely because I have some shorter pages, and so I want to make sure that my holes and my binding will cover all of the even the short pages. And so I am using just a very old and very destroyed book that I picked in a charity shop, something like that, and an awl, which is this pokey tool, to poke some holes in the exact spots where I put my pencil marks. And I am making sure I'm going all the way through the spine. Doing it correctly on this in this step will then help you with binding and with your needle. Now for the binding, for some reason I like to start with the last signature. I don't know why. It's just what I'm used to. And so before I do anything, I just go through my signature one last time. I make sure that all of the papers are exactly where I want them to be for the binding, so that I don't have any upside down papers, because it happens. Just making sure everything looks great. Then I am going to make sure that everything is even, and I am using these 2 big bulldog clips, paper clips, to keep everything in place. And I am going to be using the exact same template that I did, putting it inside my signature here and using the exact same holes, because this will give me the holes in the signature in the exact same places as they are in the cover. Again, I am making sure that I go through all of the pages. Again, this is really important. This will make your life so much easier when you then go in with your needle and your twine. And to bind this, I am going to just use a regular linen twine. I like this white one. It's not like stark white, maybe like it looks on camera, but I thought it matches my cover really well. And so I am taking 3 lengths of my signature. It may be slightly too much, but I definitely prefer to have too much twine to allow for any mistakes. And threading it through my needle, and here is how the 3-hole pamphlet stitch goes. So first we start with the hole in the middle hole, and I go through the papers first and then through the covers. This is just this makes it so much easier to do it separately. So first the papers, then the cover. And when we are on the other side, we will go up to the top hole, and again first through the cover and then through the pages. And you want to make sure that you go with your needle through all of the pages, so that's why I keep those paper clips so none of my pages move, and that's why it was important to have those holes nice and kind of deep, all the way down to the bottom hole here through the cover. And then the most tricky part, I would say, is we are going back through the middle hole. So here you can see me making sure that I don't poke my needle through the twine that I already have there, and I'm going to do the same for the papers. And now I am not tightening up anything at this point yet. I do it when I'm done with the binding. So I want my loose ends, loose twines, to be on the other on either side of this one in the middle. And this is the part when I tighten everything up, make sure that there are no kind of like little knots in the twine, and just making sure it's nice and secure and it will stay in place. Now I wouldn't use like too much force, especially if you are doing it for the first time, because you don't want to tear your pages, especially if you are using some more delicate ones. But yeah, you just want your signatures to be securely in place. I'm making a low bow. This is what I like to do, cutting off those edges, but I did a double knot just because if whoever uses this journal wants to cut off those, like this bow, doesn't want it here, it's nice and secure with a double bow. Now, I did the other two signatures off camera just for the time's sake. I did them exactly the same as I did this first one, and here is the final flip through of this journal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was informative. I hope it was cohesive and coherent. Now, like I mentioned in the intro, if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. This video took me 2 weeks to film and then hours to edit. So I think I said everything that I wanted, but there may be some things that I missed. There may be some things that maybe were not clear. So yeah, please let me know, and I will be very happy to answer any of your questions. I also just wanted to mention that while this is a Christmas journal, this is my way of making journals. This is everything that I do for a journal of this type, hardcover, hand painted. And so you can just use this tutorial to make any theme of a journal, nature, spring, whatever you wish. Just repurpose it, and use other decorations, use different papers, and yeah, and it will work as well. So in the description box you guys will see the measurements of the cover. You will see any other tutorials. I will link some other like cover types tutorials that I have. And for now, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will speak to you guys very soon in the next video. Bye.